Hey everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Andre and let's talk about The Lighthouse. Fair warning though, this video may contain some slight spoilers. The Lighthouse came out in 2019 and has won various awards at festivals around the world, including an Oscar nomination for Best Achievement in Cinematography. The film was directed by Robert Eggers, who wrote it together with his brother, Max Eggers. It stars Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe as lighthouse keepers in the 1890s who struggle to maintain their sanity in the face of solitude and isolation. The Lighthouse follows these two characters as they spend the next 4 weeks on this remote island, tending to the light and the other needs of this facility. When a storm prevents them from being relieved of their posts, their situation quickly deteriorates and they each get more than what they bargained for. The premise of this film is pretty simple. Two people on an island, figuring it out. However, in actuality, the layers beneath this story run deep. It's mainly told from Robert Pattinson's character's point of view, Ephraim Winslow, who is new at his job and comes on as Willem Dafoe's character's assistant. Thomas Wake is a seasoned lighthouse keeper who feels more at home on the island with the light than among people. I want to start off by talking about the concrete aspects of the film. The editing in The Lighthouse is really great. It knows when to keep things slow, taking its time to show us amazingly written shots that don't cut and have lots of action. It also knows when to speed things up, cutting back and forth between imagery quickly to show us what's happening in the minds of certain characters. Something I noticed in the film is that nearly all the sound we hear is diegetic, or originating from the story. The foghorn is a particularly great source of sound that is used masterfully through editing. The film is also in 1:19:1 aspect ratio, nearly a perfect square. The tight frame, I think, is reflective of the old tale that the story tells, but I also think that it shows us visually how these characters are trapped on the island. This was planned from the beginning, and it shows, because as an audience member you barely notice the square frame. This is because the cinematography also draws you in so successfully. The golden ratio can be found everywhere throughout this film. These types of compositions draw your eye, they guide you and pull you in. When a shot is not golden, it's usually central framing or symmetrical composition, which also draws you in because it's different and therefore demands attention. The lighting in this film nearly always comes from practical lights. Lights that are diegetic, or originating from something on screen. This becomes especially apparent in scenes that take place mostly in the dark. These practical lights sometimes become the only source of lighting, something that accentuates the elements in the shot and pulls us in even more. Kind of like when you're sitting around a campfire, or if you would walk down a pitch black hallway holding a candle. It's something that we don't really experience anymore today with all the light pollution we have, but it's also something that people back then would have gone through all the time and would have been normal for them. This also adds a certain rawness and grit to the film, like it's showing you a simpler time, and like it's telling you that all you need to worry about is right here in front of you. On the other hand, daytime scenes always seem to take place on a gray, cloudy day, and we never see actual sunshine. This adds texture to the already black and white shots, and I think that if the sun would shine, it would distract us from the story. In this way, we only have 2 times of day and night. It keeps us in the trance that this film draws us into. Dialogue is another aspect of this film that is incredibly well written. First and foremost, what I noticed is that these two characters speak differently. Pattinson is more modern than Dafoe, who is more old school.
You hear me, lad?
Yes, sir.
Aye, sir.
Aye, sir.
The fact that such a subtlety is used to tell us about the characters is just amazing to me. There are also incredible monologues held by characters at times that are filmed in one shot. They are long, but roll by with incredible rhythm that makes you want to hear more.
You swab it again, and you swab it proper like this time, and you'll be swabbing it 10 times more after that. And if I tells you to pull up and apart every floorboard and cupboard of this here house and scour 'em down with your bare bleeding knuckles, you'll do it.
The characters' monologues and the dialogue that they share is also often full of important information, such as backstory and exposition, and it's very easy to miss sometimes. There are scenes where it's just the two of them talking to each other, and usually what they say reveals a lot about their characters.
You don't like me cooking?
We realize that they are unique, but ultimately not that different. Defoe is a man who has spent many years as a lighthouse keeper and has had 2 other assistants before Pattinson. All he reveals is that his last one went mad before he died, and that is a great piece of foreshadowing. As it turns out, there's a true story that inspired this part of the film, the Smalls Lighthouse tragedy. Thomas Howell and Thomas Griffith, 2 keepers who were known not to get along, were stationed at the Smalls Lighthouse in 1801. This was the most remote lighthouse in Wales at the time, and was basically only a small hut on oak pillars, with the ocean passing underneath. Griffith became sick during their shift, and after he died, Howell didn't want to throw away his body into the ocean because he was afraid that he would be accused of murder if there was no evidence. He proceeded to live with Griffith's decaying corpse for weeks because there was a massive storm that made it impossible to land at the lighthouse for a long time. Howell eventually constructed a makeshift coffin for Griffith that he tied to the outside of the windowed hut. The waves would eventually break the coffin, but the corpse stayed tied to the wall. When he finally made it back home, Howell was unrecognizable from the emotional trauma, and as a result of the tragedy, the rules for lighthouse keepers were changed to require 3-man teams. Our film The Lighthouse draws on this for Defoe's character. We get imagery of a man's decaying head as Pattinson pulls up one of their lobster traps, which is a reference to the coffin. Without this story, this just shows us Pattinson's state of mind as he begins to lose it. After hearing the story, however, I feel like it gives us insight into Defoe's character. He is the lighthouse keeper whose last assistant went mad and died. In other words, Defoe's seen some shit. Pattinson's character is new to the industry and used to work as a logger. His last partner died in an accident, and although Pattinson didn't like him and wanted to kill him, he didn't. Nevertheless, throughout the movie, we see imagery of his guilt towards this man. These backstories tell us a lot about the characters. Defoe is a reclusive, kinda crazy old man who can be dangerous. He likes to assert himself and delegates all the hard work to his assistant. Pattinson works hard and tries to be a good man. He has morals, but is on an edge. He knows what is right, but doesn't always want to do it. We can see that these two don't get along very well. Defoe is kind of like the devil on Pattinson's shoulder. He works him to death, influences him to drink, and tells him to listen to him over the lighthouse rules and regulations.
I understood it's against regulations, sir.
Did you?
I did, sir, from them's manual.
Didn't picture you were reading, man.
Well, I ain't trying for trouble.
Then you do as I say.
He puts himself in a position of power over Pattinson, and effectively eliminates the rules and regulations as an authority in the film. This helps to narrow the story down, just like the aspect ratio does visually. Power dynamic is now only a contest between the two of them.
Aye, sir.
You're too slow. You a dullard?
No, sir.
Fooled me.
This power dynamic they share is also explored through references to ancient Greek mythology. Zeus, the leader of the ancient Greek gods, was a tyrannical leader for humanity, and confiscated fire from them, keeping it on top of Mount Olympus. Prometheus, a titan from the old world, believed this was unjust and stole fire back for humanity. As punishment, Zeus chained Prometheus to the top of another mountain and sent his eagle to eat the immortal titan's regenerating liver. In The Lighthouse, we see this myth portrayed in the dynamic between our characters. Defoe, like Zeus, hoards the light for himself, keeping it locked up at the top of the lighthouse, just like Zeus keeps fire at the top of Mount Olympus. He talks down to Pattinson, delegating all the menial work to him and putting him down. Pattinson yearns for the light, but when he finally reaches it, it's too much, and he's pushed over the edge. The final scene in this film is extremely symbolic of this metaphor. It sees Pattinson defeated and at the mercy of the souls of sailors who never made it home, kind of like Prometheus and the eagle. Seagulls are an important motif throughout the film because of this metaphor, though I think that they also represent the seafaring mythos that is alluded to in the story. The film draws on this, and I think that, to an extent, it's also told as an old seaman's tale. The seagulls are a very subtle but persistent part of the story, from the very beginning when the wind changes, to the end when they're all that's left on the island. Yeah, go watch this one. I highly recommend. This is a film with incredible depth, layers, and metaphors to be peeled back, which can still be enjoyed at a surface level if that's what you want. Every time you watch it, you will see new things that stand out to you. You can find deep meaning in this film if you go looking, but if you don't, that's okay too. You'll still have a great time. Questions, concerns, dilemmas? Drop a comment down below. My name is Andre, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.